Okay, well, thanks everybody. Oh, actually, we just had Wahid join us. I'll let him in and we'll have him do a quick check-in too. Hey, Wahid, how's it going?
Hey Alvin, how's it going?
Doing pretty good. Welcome. So we just finished our check-ins, and the check-in today is number, color, and what is your like ideal meal right now?
Okay, so number I'm gonna say seven. Color is I'm gonna say lavender. And ideal meal right now. Sorry, I would love like a no something with mushrooms. I don't know, some vegetarian.
Sounds good. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for coming to the coalition meeting tonight. So it's pretty open agenda tonight. So actually, I'll just go ahead and open it up. People can just ask questions, and anyone else, anyone who wants to chime in and discuss, please do so. So floor is open.
Alvin, one of the things you've been talking about, and you're going to explain this a lot better than me, is how some, particularly in communities of color, have really tried to hold on to properties, and have encouraged like not to sell to developers. And that's something that we're exploring a little bit with the CLT of like how to, I don't know, not encourage. I don't know what the right verb is, but potentially. Can you explain that a little bit? And I would just love to get this group's sense of kind of that concept and maybe how they've seen it in their communities and maybe ways we could utilize the CLT to help with that, or just some thoughts around that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So, and I'll speak to, and again, people add in based on their own experiences too. So one of the things that we've been discussing recently around the community land trusts is how can we build on the cooperation that already happens in a lot of communities that's a lot less formal. So one of the examples is Imhotep's mother, who like raised him in this house and was able to buy this house on land contract originally when like again there was white flight coming in Indianapolis, and she passed it down to her grandson under the condition, don't sell it, like whatever you do, don't sell it. So there's just kind of the idea of property not as necessarily an investment but as a place for family and community to have a resource. So the housing, and I think that's been passed down to Imhotep and to his son and kind of into the Kepra culture around how housing adds to building community. And Miss Pambana can also speak to it there, having gone through that herself too. But just that idea of how can the CLT potentially bring a program that supports what already exists in community, which is that work toward cooperation that people already have. So I'll either pass to Pambana or whoever else wants to chime in.
I guess I'll say that with your question, Stephanie, the only thing, and I think we've kind of talked about it before, is like, in the context of communities where there are elders aging and they can no longer, take care of their property. And then also, they may be challenged if, let's say, they're in a gentrified area and their property taxes going up, if there are ways that a CLT can help with that. And then again, so one, to help them if they don't have family to pass it down, but to be able to take care of it. And maybe, unlike there are some CLTs that have programs where elders can put their home in the CLT, they'll help them fix it up and then they can stay there. And then, when they die, it becomes a part of the property. Or, the other one is that they can pass it on to family. So those are programs that Alvin may be familiar with. I don't know a lot about them, but how can we help communities? And then to me, how can we help communities? I think kind of like you saying, maybe maintain or hold on to properties in their community and so that they don't get sold to developers. And right now, I don't know if there is a program like that where, in communities that are low income and there are properties that developers are looking for, that CLTs help to address that. I don't know. So I think I kind of understand what you're asking.
Yeah, Ms. Bombani, you want to speak anything to how you and and have used housing and kind of view housing as a resource in community, and how you kind of navigated that and what your intentionality was?
Well, I won't say navigate. I think, more that it has been, I guess I would say, an unfolding of Kepler and how we live. So, the community that I live in, when I bought the house, and as a kid, I grew up and we moved around a lot. I lived in rentals. My dad tried to buy a house and he ended up losing it to foreclosure. So for us, acquiring property and making it available to staff and community has been a part of what we do. But I won't say that that's initially how we start out. It's just that that's one of the things that I think, nonprofits can do, to help in community, and especially, for staff and others. So, looking at the CLT to me is, and it's a citywide, so it's other community organizations as well, looking at how can we do a better job of making affordable housing available to community in whatever way it may be, whether it's family, whether it's rental, whether it's, through community organizations. So I'll just say that to me, it kind of organically unfolded.
Thanks, Ms. Pambana. Anyone else want to speak to that? And I guess if anyone has any memories of how properties have been used in family, maybe in your own experiences. And also, actually, we had Rebecca rejoin, so I want to give her a chance to check in. We do for our check-ins, how you're feeling 1 to 10. Today we're your mood, we're a color, what color would it be? And then the last question was your ideal meal right now that's delicious.
Okay, hi everyone. I guess I would say my mood's probably a 7, and I'll say the sky blue for the color. And my favorite meal right now is a vegan version of Hamburger Helper.
Nice. And Rebecca, is this your first time joining? How did you hear about us, and what interested you in joining?
I think I Googled Community Land Trust, and that's how I found the Kepra Institute.
What were you Googling it for? What interested you?
Well, I've been really interested in community development for a while, and but recently I saw a video about South Bend and a lot of the stuff that they're doing, and I wanted to see if there's anything like that going on in Indy.
Nice. Well, welcome. And again, feel free to ask any kind of questions you want. So I don't know if you were here for it, but the floor is open tonight without an agenda. So people have questions that you want to ask, even very basic ones like, who are you? What are you doing? Feel free to ask any kind of questions.
Okay. I'm going to turn my camera off though, because my phone is on low battery, but I will be here.
Alvin, I do want to ask you, kind of based on Stephanie's question, if you come across any other CLTs that help under-resourced communities keep housing affordable, and I guess also help elderly people hold on to their houses or put them in CLTs. I know the CLT, and y'all probably haven't gotten to that yet, but y'all have been looking at different models of types of programs we might pilot.
So one example of that, that last part about like helping people stay in their homes, existing homeowners, is City of Lake CLT that has a program called Project Sustain Legacy. And that's where in particular they're largely elders, people on fixed incomes, have like older houses that they can't maintain or are going to lose to tax foreclosure. So they like build a relationship with them. And, I got the chance to be in a workshop and they, where they were talking about like this kind of a project and build relationships over time and figure out, is there a way that the CLT can work together with them to help them stay in their home? So the CLT has access to resources through city or funders, and they then like help either fix the like bill that's due, or to help them fix it up. So like, for instance, like in our neighborhood, there's like lots of like people who are elderly and all the homes are like over 100 years old. So it's a lot to keep up a home, particularly like the big ticket items. So is there a way, and this is kind of something we want to approach mindfully. Again, like we don't want the CLT to come across as trying to take people's properties, but we also don't want to just ignore that there are people in our community that don't have access to a resource to stay where they want to stay. And how do we do that mindfully and if at all? So that's kind of the idea. So it could work. I think the way it worked with Minneapolis, the City of Lake CLT, again, they would help them do repairs and they would then become a part of the CLT. I don't know if it was like instant or like upon their death or whatever, that then like there's a limited appreciation. Not that they like took the home from them, but like, okay, it's worth 75,000, it's worth 100,000, 200,000. Way the community land trust works, there's a fixed formula for how it appreciates over time. So again, like that's kind of a thing that we're looking at, but we're not exactly sure yet.
So for example, Alvin, are you saying like if an older person whose house is kind of falling down,
yeah,
at the time they entered in, the house was worth $110,000 or $130,000.
Yeah.
You would set that as the base value for the CLT, and then put in other grant dollars to fix up the house.
Yeah, I'm not sure how City of Lakes did it, but that you could do it that way, or it could be an appraisal after the repairs. Any repairs are made where it like starts at that level. Yeah, so I think you could do it a number of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Alvin, I don't know if Beth is talking to us or not.
Beth, are you
Beth, I don't know if
talking?
you're talking to us, you're muted.
You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Yeah. Yay! This darn phone. Anyway, can you, Alvin, or others, kind of update us again where Indianapolis CLT is? I know you're working very hard on it. You're getting community partners. Let's see, you're working to create the structure, the infrastructure of it. You're making considerations of different models. What's your timeline to actually go in and form, or is that already passed? I don't know. Kind of update me where you are to date.
Thanks, Beth. Great question. And then I'll share, and then others, Stephanie or others want to add in, please do. So to date, and again, this, if you don't know anything about it, we started this effort about 4 years ago when we started the Homes for All Coalition, and basically brought people together to talk about the idea. Where we are now is we've got a support from the city for operating dollars through the end of 2024. So they're providing funding for that, and for the first projects, they've committed funding for that potential. So we're looking between now and the end of the year, like November, December, figuring out exactly what the program is going to look like. We formed an advisory board, did an advisory board search, and selected an advisory board that's meeting. We've been mostly meeting like weekly or every other week, and we've come up with what the resale formula is. So it's going to be a 2% fixed rate formula, as well as how capital improvements will be calculated. So we're kind of just going through educating the advisory board, like the different concepts around stewardship, which is really the main purpose and primary purpose of the CLT, is to help steward the properties and provide support for the residents, and really an institution that can advocate on their behalf, and keep the homes permanently affordable over time by like generally what a CLT will do. They will help either develop or partner with developers that produce affordable housing, and the homeowner buys the house on it, and then the CLT owns the land underneath it and does a ground lease for 99 years. It's renewable and can be passed down and inherited to the homeowner, so that if they go to sell the house, they have to follow like what the ground lease says, which is that it only appreciates 2% per year. And that idea is to balance wealth creation for the individual family and also the long-term value of an affordable home in the community. So that's where we're at. We've kind of talked about, set some important policy stuff. We're working on retaining a lawyer to help us put together the nonprofit piece. So we're forming a new 501c3 that may start as a subsidiary of Kepler Institute until it like goes out on its own. We are working with the city auditor and assessor on how the property taxes are going to work. So that's one of the like more important issues, because if like homeowners don't have like a property tax deduction, the property taxes are going to be a lot higher, and it's going to be harder to do affordable housing. So anyone want to add in anything?
We launched our logo contest and had 9 submissions, which was really exciting. And so the CLT is looking through those and refining a mission statement. Really excited about that. And then continuing community outreach to really it not be like we have the solution for you. Like, hey, this is a tool that could be helpful. How do you see it working in the community? What are some pros and cons? What do you see? Like really wanting it to be a dialogue and really get good community involvement.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie. And I'll also add in, we've been doing a lot of different meetings and lunches with different partners. So Habitat for Humanity's leadership, who's also thinking about, hey, how do we do maybe some of this kind of stuff? And is there a place for synergy in INHP, Indiana Neighborhood Housing Partnership, and others, just to, again, like, not trying to reinvent the wheel, but have the CLT be an institution that provides that stewardship as well as advocates for the residents of the CLT, and in general to focus the CLT on how housing has been used to exploit communities, particularly communities of color.
Ooh. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question. The house next door to mine has been vacant for, I think, at least 3 years. And I'm wondering if that type of property would be a candidate for the CLT, or is it mainly focused on, residents who need help maintaining their properties?
Great question. So I think definitely that could be a candidate, whether it's through a partner or the CLT at some point wants to work to like redevelop houses. So the other, and I'll just share another model that we're looking at with the community land trust, is a buyer driven or home buyer choice model where people can buy a house that's just for sale on the market. Like, let's say that house next door to you was for sale for like $150,000, but CLT could bring like $50,000 or $75,000 to make it so instead of $150,000, the mortgage for the home buyer is only $75,000. This kind of stuff like that. The idea of you bring subsidy to the table. And the other alternative where that could work is like like partnering with people who do, whether it's community development corporations or others who are like do that, like buy houses and then fix them up, and like partnering with the CLT to keep it permanently affordable and support the residents.
It's really nice. Good.
So Alvin, would that in the homebuyer choice, would that be subsidized by CDBG or home?
I think that would be so. CDBG is community development block grants, and home is another source of federal funding that goes to cities and municipalities to support the development of affordable housing. And yeah, so CLTs around the country, like those are two of the big sources, along with other sources from philanthropy and other housing kind of funds. So
in the homebuyer choice, how do you get away from the house having to meet minimum home standards, home development standards?
That's a good question. I don't know, but
I wasn't sure. I'm not. If it's served, it may not apply. But I know, like when you're developing home, when you're rehabbing homes, you have to do. You can't. You can't do like a partial rehab. A lot of times they make you do a lot more than you wanted to do. But if the home buyer, it might be differently.
Well, and I think we were looking at homes that were mostly ready or needed minimum repair.
Yeah, and they do it. Yeah, exactly, and that's what Houston Community Land Trust does. Is there's certain minimum, like nothing on the house, major systems need replacement in the next 10 years. Just certain kind of like standards that they have. And City of Lakes does it a little differently too. They have can provide up to like 20 or 30,000 in repair dollars to address any like major issues in the home, plus providing that subsidy. So it could be done either way.
Nice.
So Alvin,
you know when? Sorry, go ahead, Babanda.
No, it's a goal like beginning 2024 to. Will you know which types of programs the CLT will be offering?
Yeah, I would say by then we should have that set. And we're really trying toward like November, December to start to like take applications for like residents who like want to be a part of it, whatever model we select.
Recognizing too that it may take some time for residents to qualify in terms of just going through the process. There likely would be some like homeowner education class, a CLT orientation class, all the financing. So all that can take some time before we're actually to the point where they've been approved and we can, work to get them in a home. So recognizing that.
So my question, can you hear me now? Yes. Yeah, okay. My question is, will you have is it your thought that you will have multiple visions of models that you would offer? Or are you going to keep it simple at the beginning and start out with one model and pursue that?
Don't know yet, but I think you've got your question is a leading question. No, that's good. I don't think we figured that out, whether it's like, hey, we're going to try a little bit. I think we want to try and at first keep it as simple and easy to understand as possible. How we land on that, I'm not exactly sure yet.
And then the follow-on question to that is, when you consider the type of model that you might implement first or multiple ones at once, do you envision a specific boundary? I mean, I know in general you're talking about Marion County, but have you thought I guess regionally within Marion County where you would isolate areas for your first involvement versus, you know, like that one model you're talking about, like if you were an elderly person and you had a home and you wanted to try to stay in, I could envision that being like scattered throughout Marion County. So have you any thoughts on how that's rolling out?
So far, the only thing we've been thinking about is Marion County. There may be certain communities that it makes sense to target with certain specific kind of projects, like something that really focuses on like the issues of gentrification. Can we focus it in certain areas that are really like, but we haven't decided exactly yet.
It's hard. It's hard taking all the complex factors together.
Well, we want to be able to give people choice where we can. So if they want to live in a certain neighborhood in Marion County, you know, trying to figure out that balance.
Hey, Alvin, can we talk a little bit about how any potential to engage renters and not just homeowners with the CLT?
Wahid, can you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, sure thing. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering if we could talk a little bit, or kind of have a question about how we could engage renters and not just homeowners for the CLT. Like if that's a possibility at all, or something that we could be thinking about.
Yeah, that's a great
future.
question.
That's something I've been thinking about too. I went to this fair housing event, Just Action last week, and you know, wondered if part of what the CLT does is getting involved in tenant rights or other things that are kind of on the end of on different parts of the housing spectrum, not wanting us to go too broad, but recognizing like there can be different consequences of a CLT coming in, and how do we balance all of that? Or is there some of it about like making sure that some renters know that the CLT is out there and making them aware of, you know, credit counseling and other services that would maybe make them more home buy or mortgage eligible? Because the reality is, even with a lower area median income, to be in a CLT home, they'd have to still be able to qualify for a mortgage. So there could be some credit barriers and things like that. Definitely curious of other thoughts though.
I guess my question too would be, besides kind of education to become a homeowner, like maybe there's people who don't want to be a homeowner for various reasons. So finding ways to have permanently affordable rentals as well, if there's any consideration to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And also to add in on what Wahid was sharing too and asking, I would say that the focus, at least in my mind, is squarely on folks who have been renters, like really with the idea that people who like that's one of the main tools. Housing has been one of the main tools of exploitation and the withdrawal of capital from particularly communities of color to folks who have resources already and control real estate, which often is in the relationship of a tenant and a landlord, whether it's like a big corporate landlord or even like individual people who own properties and profit off of it. So I would say that for us, we would really like the CLT to find a way to interfere or disrupt that through both leveraging resources and bringing them to community, but also leveraging the collective power that people already have. They're already paying a lot of money and resources to their housing. Is there a way that we could create collaboration between people so that there is an institution and a program where people can come together to collaborate in that way? And I do agree that the different tenant organizing groups in town, as well as the organizations that work with folks who are having challenges with like rentals and landlords, as well as partnering with different programs that already work and work with folks in that space, whether that's like Habitat or INHP, which work with a lot of first-time homeowners, I think is like a key thing, and our relationships in community. And if we act with integrity and create something of value, people will share it with folks that they care about.
To David and Wahid's point, I wonder too, as far as like providing long-term affordable rental, we can, the Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority puts out what's called a qualified action plan every 3 years, and they take public input on that. One of the things that we can advocate for in that, particularly now that we've got at least a couple of land trusts in the state, the way the development of affordable housing works, it's an incredibly competitive process, like where you're competing to get the award. And so if we lobbied them to make the land getting, say, 3 to 5 points on your tax credit application, if you make your property part of a community land trust, that would push it across the state, not just in Indianapolis. But I think we should think about, I don't know exactly when the next qualified allocation plan is coming out or when the public input session is, but we should keep that on our radar in order to do that, because I mean that could be a game changer for affordable housing, because right now a lot of properties will either between 15 and 30 years they'll be developed as affordable and then go away.
Thanks, David. That's a great point. And what David's referring to is the low-income housing tax credit, which is one of the programs, at least existing programs that create affordable rent.
David, did you say that was the qualified allocation plan?
So the qualified action plan or qualified allocation plan, usually people call it the QAP. You can probably Google
like they have a 2023-2024 one now. Okay. So that's a pretty new one probably.
Yeah. So next year they'll probably start doing public input for the following, for the 2024-2025.
Yeah, and one more to the question of permanent rentals too. Another potential purpose of the community land trust could be supporting the creation of cooperatives. So a cooperative is like really like, instead of individual people owning like a unit or a property, it's collectively owned by everybody. So everybody's credit is on it. They're part of this, and either buying a share in the cooperative gives them the right to lease this unit or to like and they basically split the costs. So instead of there being a 30%, 40% chunk in there for profit, there's like, they just pay at cost what it takes to maintain the property over time. And it's called a carrying charge. So a lot of community land trusts, particularly in like expensive cities, which like Indianapolis is catching up with the other ones too, like San Francisco and New York. A lot of community land trusts work with tenants to help them purchase their buildings and transition into being cooperatives. So that's like a potential strategy that we could use to support that kind of organizing and leverage the capital to do that.
Is there a way to get a mortgageable interest in a co-op, like to buy your share? Like I know that's been a struggle with a lot of co-ops, is you can't get a mortgage to buy the share, you have to pay cash for it.
That's a great question. I know there is like cooperative banks, like specifically for cooperatives. Some of them are like lend to co-ops, and we should do some research on what that looks like.
Yeah.
So this is kind of to Stephanie, just one, when will the logo contest be decided? And then and I guess I'm assuming, but I shouldn't assume. And once that's done, when will we and how will we learn about what the logo is and the name of the CLT?
Yeah, I think There was some preliminary interest in our last board meeting, but as we want to just confirm that matches the mission statement well. And as we're refining that, just want to make sure that those talk to one another. But I think we have a probably pretty good leaning on that. But we want to obviously make sure that the winner is informed before the public is. And then I can see us posting that through our social media channels and also updating the website accordingly. And we'll, of course, share that with the Homes for All Coalition, likely within the monthly newsletter as well.
So you think that's going to be next month?
I think it's possible. I think at some point in September, yes. I don't know if it'll make the September 1st newsletter, but I could see that in the next 4 to 6 weeks being publicly shared. And I think we had said it would be by the end of September, I believe, in like the rules that we posted for the logo. We might be a little bit ahead of that now, but somewhere in the next 4 to 6 weeks, I think.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I was curious on the property tax issue you mentioned earlier. That sounds like something that possibly could need the state legislature to create new legislation. So is there any type of initial lobbying or efforts to get that moving?
So go ahead, Stephanie.
So yeah, we're looking at both short-term and long-term solutions. So there are 4 or 5 other CLTs forming, or some a little further, some a little behind where we are, in different stages of development throughout the state. So this is going to be something that needs to get addressed at the state level, as you mentioned. So there already is some verbiage that has been out of South Bend, and there's been some conversations with some representatives up there. And then we do have a call scheduled with Prosperity Indiana, who has a lot of relationships with various legislators, and kind of works at the state level. And Kepra is a member of Prosperity Indiana to kind of look at maybe that potentially being one of their agenda items. So we are working at some long-term solutions there, because that will be something we have to address. But then we're also trying to talk with the city and our consultant with Grounded Solutions about what some short-term options might be that still protect the homeowner, but help us to hopefully be able to start getting these projects through sooner, because who knows how long it can take until we have a long-term fix.
Any other questions or even thoughts before we
So
close
I'm
out?
curious.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Where can you send me to find out who is on the board of directors and who is the advisory board?
Well, I just posted that in the chat. If you scroll all the way to the bottom of that webpage, we are working to make some changes, but it does have the advisory board, a photo along with the names and the kind of affiliations of all of those members.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm excited to say that just as of like last week, we got that posted. So great question. Good timing. Wahid's one of our members. So.
Oh, it's good to see Renee is on there. I didn't know she was on there. She's a great addition.
Yeah, we've got a great group. And then some other informal advising from people like yourself and this group here. So we're really getting out to the community and getting lots of advice and suggestions and dialogue. Good.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I will say, Dave, did you have some?
No, I was just saying, I was giving you the thumbs up.
Okay, sounds good. Well, everyone, have a great evening. More updates to come, and thanks for joining us. Appreciate y'all.
See you guys.
Bye, everyone.